Aston Martin has long been the James Bond of the automotive world. Sophisticated, stylish, and devastatingly effective when necessary. But in 2018, something changed. The new Vantage wasn't here to sip martinis and deliver suave one-liners. No, this was a barroom brawler, a predator with a growl so menacing it sent shivers down the spines of the Porsche 911s and AMG GTs alike. Stick around while we take a brief look at how this car came to be, and then see how it stacks up against the other cars we've already tested. Few cars redefined a brand like the 2018 Aston Martin Vantage. It wasn't just a sequel to its beloved predecessor, it was a whole new attitude. If the old Vantage was a charming British gentleman with a mischievous streak, the new one was a boxer stepping into the ring, gloves off, ready to fight the world's best. Underneath its aggressively sculpted skin, the 2018 Vantage took a bold leap forward. Gone was the naturally aspirated V8, and in its place roared a twin-turbo 4-liter V8 engine sourced from Mercedes-AMG. With 503 horsepower and a deep crackling exhaust note, this wasn't just an evolution, it was a full-blown transformation. Aston's engineers, however, didn't just take a Mercedes engine and drop it in the car and call it a day. They gave it a soul of its own, fine-tuning the throttle response and exhaust system to create a symphony that was unmistakably Aston Martin. Wild, yet refined. The design was a radical departure from Vantages of old. The wide, low stance, the shark-like front grille, and the LED headlights made it look like it had been carved from the wind itself. The rear? Pure aggression, with an integrated ducktail spoiler and menacing taillights that made sure anyone left in its wake knew exactly what had just humiliated them. The interior was just as striking, swapping out the old-school elegance for a driver-focused cockpit. Aston embraced modern design cues. A Mercedes-sourced infotainment system, thankfully without the touchscreen, a jet fighter-style gear selector, and an overall snug performance-first layout turned the Vantage into a true driver's car. On the road, the 2018 Vantage was unlike any Aston before it. The new aluminum chassis derived from the DB11, but with 70% unique components, made it sharper, lighter, and more agile. The steering was precise, the balance impeccable, and the electronic rear differential, which was a first in Aston history, allowed it to dance through the corners like a proper sports car. The Vantage wasn't just a beautiful Grand Tourer anymore. It was an apex hunting, tire-shredding sports car ready to take on the Porsche 911 and Mercedes-AMG GT. It was an Aston Martin that didn't just look fast, it felt fast, in a way that would leave you grinning like a kid in a candy store. The 2018 Vantage wasn't just a new car, it was a statement. Aston Martin had always been about elegance and heritage, but this machine was about something more. Performance with attitude. It took risks, ditched tradition, and emerged as a purebred sports car with a snarling, turbocharged V8 at its heart. And the best part? It proved that Aston Martin could go head-to-head with the world's best without sacrificing character or charm. It was meaner, louder, and more exhilarating than any Vantage before it. And, perhaps most importantly, it was a car that didn't care about tradition. It only cared about one thing: being the best sports car Aston Martin had ever built. If you've made it this far, please like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future content. And I'll work to continue to improve and bring you up-to-date information. Now let's head to Tokyo and see where the Vantage lands on our list. The new Vantage can be challenging to drive, but it's also a very rewarding car to drive because it will point out a lot of your flaws and help you work on them. The feedback through the wheel is amazing and gives you a lot of confidence through the corners and helps you really feel what the car is doing. But if you punch the throttle too hard, this car is very happy to punch you right back and kick that rear end out. Fully built, it'll end up with 809 performance points, and at the peak power, it's producing 851 horsepower and 709 foot-pounds of torque. With the 8-speed transmission that's equipped in the car, it's very easy to stay in that peak power. So it's a good car to drive for that reason as well. You'll be working through a range of around 2,000 RPMs or less between shifts. The chassis is also really well balanced with a 50-50 weight distribution on the front and rear, and that's balancing that 2,496 pounds. So this is a relatively light vehicle as well, especially for the power it's producing. And it's a good balance for a front engine car. It's usually a little better to have some of that weight to the back for late braking, but this car is a blast to drive, like I said before. The fuel economy isn't great with the Vantage needing to pit after about 3 laps, but some clever shifting could get you another lap out of that pretty easily, or you could even double it by changing the fuel maps. The front grip on the car is great after the tune, but it does come at an expense to the tires. The fronts wore at about 33%, and the rears wore down at about 25%. We ended up crossing the line at 1 minute 47.933 seconds, and that put it right up in the top 10 behind the Pagani Huayra and behind the engine swapped Nismo 400R. So this is definitely a good car to pick up. And at a price of $210,000, it's well worth the money as well. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.